Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all the ships at sea. I am thinking, and thinking some more. I envision a simpler time, a time when World War II had just ended in victory for the United States and its allies, a time when, unfortunately, the Soviet Union had begun to become a nuclear menace, the start of something many of us know fully well about, the Cold War. It was also during that same time period that a U.S. Senator arose from the state of Wisconsin named Joseph McCarthy, and a very staunch and adamant opponent of the Soviet Union, its communist system of government, and all proponents of Marxism who may have infiltrated U.S. government and also the United States motion picture industry centered in Hollywood, California. Now, while McCarthy eventually grew into disrepute with much of the American populace for taking his accusations and interrogation tactics too far, it must also be noted that was the same time era when Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were discovered and tried for leaking U.S. nuclear secrets to the Soviet Union, secrets which did in fact lead to the creation of nuclear missiles by the communist nation. With that in mind, it is safe to say that, much like today, there were plenty of Soviet sympathizers and outright communists within the United States at that time, and some most likely within the halls of government and Hollywood offices. Fast forward 75 years, here we are in 2025, and it is widespread knowledge that there are plenty of communist proponents within the halls of the U.S. government, Hollywood, and even political think tanks these days. Have we learned nothing from the catastrophic downfall of the Soviet Union, Cuba, and myriad other believers in communist systems of government? Yet we are daily bombarded with tripe from communists on movies, television talk shows, supposed news programs from the lamestream networks, and even people protesting in the streets demanding that failed Marxist policies be enacted and signed into law within the borders of perhaps the greatest democratic republic in human history. One with its fair share of flaws, but not those that cannot be remedied through the constitutional system enacted so many centuries ago. Folks, I'm simply asking, where is the outcry against it in this modern era? Communism, socialism, and the political ideologies of Karl Marx are still as ineffective and even evil in this day and age as they were in the early 1950s. Nothing in that arena has changed, yet we continue to see the radical wing of the Democratic Party calling for many of its programs to be enacted here, along with many new additional ideas that are debased, unethical, immoral, and even Lenin and Stalin opposed. On top of all that, we also continue to see moneyed oligarchs and their corporate cronies pushing for the complete destruction of American society and Western civilized democratic systems of government overall. Okay. Seeing that Senator Joseph McCarthy passed away in 1957, and not many are naming names of late as it pertains to those bent on our destruction, this puppet believes it is past time to do so, and on we go. Before I begin pointing out the worst offenders, please, viewers, take notes. While I cannot demand that anyone cease financially supporting these vile people, companies, and corporations, I can and will ask that all of those watching this video think long and hard before doing so. In case some had not noticed, we're in a war. Not bombs, bullets, or blood, no. In fact, this puppet will never advocate for any of those. However, the Bible speaks of spiritual warfare, and that is where we are at, whether you realize it or not. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 6, we find the following in the words of Jesus Christ himself. Do not give what is holy to the dogs, nor cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn and tear you in pieces. Now, many interpret that passage to mean that we are to be guarded in what we reveal of our personal matters to those outside the faith. But this puppet also interprets that passage to mean that we are also to be guarded about where we spend our money, and that it supports those people and companies, many which we do not agree with. Do we really want to be sowing into morally bankrupt organizations and reaping the rewards thereof? I think not. Chief communist criminals operating with broad influence in the United States of America. It goes without saying, George Soros, also a corrupt Jew. What can you do to deny him power and starve him? Not a lot financially, but voting is the sure way. Each and every American citizen of voting age needs to take account of their important issues that impact their grandchildren's future, investigate the candidates for their stances on those issues, and vote. No more lethargically sitting home on Election Day. This includes the primary elections also. We have just suffered through the worst 4 years in American history. The way Soros will be defeated is not by voting for his bought and paid for puppets. The next major offender, folks, is the Walt Disney Company, or just Disney as they go by, and trying to lure unsuspecting victims into their web of crimes against humanity. Headed by another corrupt Jew, Bob Iger, who is as loose on morals as anyone has ever seen. Disney pandered hard in the state of Florida to influence public schools for woke causes such as DEI hiring and transsexual daily reading sessions with young school children, all in the name of indoctrination into all sorts of mental and spiritual illness. Best way to get Iger and Disney is financially. Do not subscribe to any of their online streaming television propaganda services, including ABC Television Network and the ESPN group of woke political propaganda networks. Also avoid Hulu streaming service, as is a branch of the evil empire. Marvel Comics and all of its superheroes are now owned by Disney also, so please abstain from streaming any of that content or buying their merchandise. Money, or lack thereof, is the only thing that is going to turn the tide against the wicked Disney machine, plain and simple, folks. On the topic of vile debased media conglomerates that are the worst in trying to destroy America, basically all of the major Hollywood studios have turned into anti-American brainwashing machines in the past decade or two. The list includes Sony Pictures, Paramount, Columbia Pictures, Legendary Entertainment, DreamWorks SKG, 21st Century Fox, Warner Brothers, and Universal Studios, among others. You see, my loyal viewers, basically all of these are headed and directed by filthy money from globalist oligarchs and corrupt Jews. Now, before you go branding this puppet the dreaded anti-Semite label, realize that I identify true faith-based Jews, and then also identifies those debased cretins calling themselves Jews and are into destroying the established American culture and Western civilized world at any cost. Again, as with Walt Disney Company, best to hit these vile demons where it hurts them the most, in the wallet. Do not stream their content, do not subscribe to their propaganda services, do not buy any merchandise related to their intellectual properties. Haha, if that is a laugh. Starve the cockroaches out. Who else does this modern McCarthy call out as bent on destruction of the United States of America? Why, none other than Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or better known these days as AOC. Take a look, folks, at the woke communist causes she backs and tell me how she should even be permitted into the United States Congress. This avowed Marxist has tried to get bills passed with everything from the ill-thought-out Green New Deal to voting to impeach President Trump based on the emoluments clause of the United States Constitution. That is a clause that prohibits the acceptance of gifts for federal office holders from foreign interests without congressional consent. Now consider for a moment the crass hypocrisy of this when we also think about the myriad bribes that Felon Joe took from Ukraine and China through money laundering LLCs, but she never once voted to initiate impeachment proceedings against him, did she? How best to deal with the very real threat of AOC? Vote in primaries and general elections. If you happen to live outside of her congressional district, like most of us do, simply contact your congressional representative and ask them to censure AOC for her anti-American beliefs and practices. In the same vein as AOC, we must also take a look at a U.S. congressional representative from Minnesota named Ilhan Omar. This terrorist, yes, I called her a terrorist, has backed every anti-American cause imaginable, along with having committed fraud on her immigration application to enter the United States by claiming her brother as her own husband. Having openly criticized Israel and also having backed Somalia, her home country, in many controversial stands. Additionally, it has to be considered that she's a radical Islamist, and those beliefs are simply incompatible with the best interest of the United States of America. Also, it must be noted that she is highly dishonest, having been involved in using an illegal person as her spouse on income tax filings and also campaign finance fraud. Best way to deal with Omar is to deport her for immigration fraud and anti-American practices. And of course, if I point out Islamic terrorists infiltrating our government, it would most certainly be remiss of this puppet to leave out one Rashida Tlaib from Michigan. Like Ilhan Omar, Tlaib is all out to expand the Islamist agenda within the United States. Anyone with a brain knows fully well that Islam is not a religion, but rather an ideology of war and conquering. Look to the United Kingdom of late for a wake-up call on what allowing Islam terrorism to spread throughout a culture and governmental system results in. Yep, they are inundated with Pakistanis, and it also turns out so is Dearbornistan, Michigan, where Tlaib hails from. One of the key elements of her strategy is to attempt to rewrite history through getting her lies passed into the U.S. Congress. The following is a quote from Tlaib's website on May the 15th, 2025. May 15th, 2025 marks the 77th anniversary of Nakba. The Nakba, which means catastrophe in Arabic, refers to the mass expulsion and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from their homes and homeland during creation of the State of Israel from 1947 and 1949. The Nakba did not end in 1948, but continues to this day as Israeli forces commit genocide in Gaza. Folks, what a crazy crock. Now, kids and cousins, does anyone else need a lesson in why Rashida Tlaib is an Islamist terrorist? Best thing that can be done to her, since her congressional district is largely Muslim extremist also, is to censor her into oblivion to a point where her ideological warfare goes nowhere. Who else? Try Adam Schiff, congressional representative from the state of California. This criminal has perjured before the Congress on many occasions and has never been held accountable. His show trials on the fake Steele dossier and January 6th are now infamous for their political grandstanding and blatant lies told. This vile slime needs tried, convicted, and imprisoned for treason and fraud against the American people. That is all I will list for now, friends and colleagues. The list gets quite long when exposing the anti-Americans and communists among us, and I most likely will follow up with another video on this sometime in the near future. Because it is a highly important topic for the future of our nation, we are at war. Good night, my loyal viewers, and sleep well.